Tom, a 83-year-old man, had been living alone and struggling with mobility issues. He decided to hire a carer named Emma to help him around the house. Emma was kind, attentive, and they got on well. They spent time chatting about their shared interests in gardening and music. After 4 months, Emma noticed that Tom had been acting strange, so she decided to investigate. She discovered a secret cellar hidden behind a bookshelf. She immediately sued him after seeing what was inside. It was time to take action. She had been waiting for this moment for days, and now it had finally come. Tom had gone outside, and she was home alone, and she knew that this was her best chance at finding out what was going on with him. He had been acting strange lately, and Emma was sure that it had something to do with this bookshelf. She had seen him pushing it around a few times, but he never wanted to tell her what was going on. Each time, he came up with an excuse about a book he was looking for. When she pushed the bookshelf to the side, she found the hidden door behind it. And as she descended into the basement, she felt like she couldn't breathe anymore. She couldn't believe that he had been keeping this from her. She immediately left his house and called her lawyer. What did Emma find in the cellar? Why had Tom been hiding it from her? And why did she sue him? "Good morning, beautiful," Tom greeted Emma as she came down for breakfast. It wasn't the way you would expect a man of almost 70 to greet his carer, but in the last few months, Tom and Emma's relationship had become more than just strictly professional. He had hired her as his carer a couple of months ago, but since then, much had changed. One day, he realized that he had fallen in love with her, and he knew he needed to tell her how he felt. He decided to write her a letter and give it to her after dinner one night. He hadn't really known what to expect, but he never thought that that night would be the start of their relationship. After Emma read the letter, she hugged him and confessed to him that she felt the same. And, well, the rest was history. From that evening, they were officially a couple. Soon after, Emma moved in with Tom and stayed there 24/7. She still had her own apartment, but she was almost never there anymore. She figured she had to visit Tom every day anyway, and now that they both knew they had feelings for each other, she might as well stay there and save the time it took her to commute. Emma had claimed the guest room. She was in a relationship with Tom, yes, but she still preferred to sleep in her own room. He snored very loudly, and she was a light sleeper. This way, they both could get a good night's rest and wake up on their own time before joining the other for breakfast. Because Emma did most of the housework, Tom usually made breakfast for the both of them. He woke up earlier than her anyway, and he didn't mind. The morning had always been his favorite part of the day, and getting to spend it with Emma only made it better. "Good morning," she replied, as she took place at the dinner table. Breakfast was ready and served, and it was still warm. It smelled delicious, and to anybody else, it might have seemed like the perfect start to the day. However, to Emma, it wasn't. She couldn't stop thinking about something that had happened last week, and again this morning. It was the first time she suspected something was wrong, and Tom pretended like it hadn't even happened. She didn't know what to think anymore, and it was killing her. Usually she slept straight until her alarm went off, but a couple of days ago, she had been awakened by some weird noises. She had laid in her bed, wide awake, wondering what that sound had been, and for some reason, she just couldn't let it go. So, she got up and walked out of the room, curious to find out. She had heard him messing around downstairs, and she thought he might need some help. So, she walked down the stairs, but when she saw what he was doing, she was confused. She didn't know what she had expected to see, but it certainly wasn't this. For some reason, he was pushing the bookshelf in the hallway. She didn't understand what he was doing, but she thought he might need her help. "Tom, "Why didn't you call me?" "Let me help you with his," she said. However, his reaction surprised her. As soon as he heard her say his name, he was startled, and he quickly turned around, his eyes wide, stammering, "Oh, Emma! What? Are you up already? I thought you were still sleeping. When did you get here?" He was obviously surprised. He almost lost his balance, and Emma ran to him, preventing him from falling. "Yes, you messing around with this bookshelf woke me, silly. Is everything okay?" she asked. Yes, everything is fine. I'm sorry for waking you. Come, let's go have breakfast now. I'm hungry, aren't you?" Tom seemed in a hurry to get away from this bookshelf, and Emma didn't understand why. Wait a second. What's going on? What were you doing with this shelf anyway?" she asked. But no matter what she said, Tom didn't seem to want to talk about it. "Nothing. I was just looking for a book. I thought I had put it here, but I was mistaken. I just remembered it's in my room. Come, let's have breakfast." Emma finally gave in and said, "All right, let's go then. What's for breakfast today?" And that was the end of it. She had asked him a few more times what he had been doing with the shelf, and she told him, "You do know that whatever it is, I can help you with it, okay?" However, Tom insisted that he had just been looking for a book, so Emma decided to let it go. During the next few days, she almost forgot about that one weird morning. Everything went back to normal, and she didn't even think about the bookshelf anymore. It had completely left her mind until this morning, when she caught him messing around with that same bookshelf again. Only this time, she had seen what he was actually doing, and she couldn't believe it. Now, there was no doubt about it anymore. She was sure that he was keeping a secret from her. She had seen what the real purpose was of that bookshelf. There was a hidden door behind it. She had seen it with her own eyes, and it was obvious that he didn't want her to know about it. Otherwise, he would have just told her about it. She decided to confront him again, and she walked into the hallway. "Tom, darling, didn't I tell you that I can help you with that? It's really not good for your back to be doing that by yourself." Again, he had jumped up as soon as he heard her voice, and this time he seemed very annoyed with her. She wondered if he knew that she had seen him. "It's nothing," he said. "Breakfast will be ready soon." He walked past her right into the kitchen and started preparing pancakes, and Emma went back to bed because she was still really tired. However, she ended up tossing and turning for another hour. She just couldn't forget about that bookshelf and the hidden door. She realized that Tom was, indeed, lying to her. This was so unlike him. Ever since they met, they had been open and honest with each other. Or, well, that's what she thought. Now, she wasn't so sure anymore. She just couldn't let it go. She thought that there had to be something hidden behind that bookshelf. But what could it be? Of course, Tom still deserved his privacy, even after she moved in with him. He could still have his secrets. However, she didn't appreciate him lying to her face about it. And now, they were having breakfast, and Tom pretended like she hadn't even come down earlier that morning. Everything seemed perfectly normal, but Emma just couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from her. She knew that she had to move that bookshelf, and she needed to do it without him seeing. It would be difficult, she already knew that. Tom barely left the house without her, and if he did, he was never gone for long. She told herself that if she was patient, an opportunity would simply present itself. And she was right about that. Luckily for her, one of Tom's friends called him that evening, asking him to go birdwatching tomorrow early morning. This was going to be her perfect chance. She only had to get up in time and find the key, and then she could open the door and check what was behind it. A part of her still hoped that she wouldn't really find anything behind that bookshelf, and that she had indeed imagined all of it. However, deep inside, she knew that what she had seen was real. She wasn't crazy, and usually her gut feeling was right about everything. She just didn't know what to expect. When she went to bed that night, she set the alarm for 5:10 a.m. Tom's friend would pick him up at 5, so she hoped to have enough time to find the answers she was looking for. She went to sleep, feeling a bit anxious, not knowing what kind of secrets she would unravel. When her alarm went off the next morning, she almost snoozed it and turned around to go back to sleep. Luckily, after 2 seconds, she jumped up, realizing that it was time for action. She quickly got dressed and walked to Tom's room to check whether it was empty. And she saw that it was. She slowly went downstairs, making as little noise as possible, just in case Tom's plans had changed and he hadn't left yet. However, as she walked around, she found that the house was empty. She took a deep breath and told herself, "Okay, it is time now." She still couldn't really believe that he had lied to her for so long, but she simply didn't know what to make of the situation. She had caught him twice, and both times he told her some stupid excuse, making her doubt herself. This wasn't like Tom at all. At least, not like the Tom she knew. Emma's fingers brushed the door's cool, worn surface, worn by time and hidden truths. Every instinct tells her to turn back, but her unease about the disappearing items and Tom's strange behavior pushes her forward. Memories of his recent evasions fill her mind. She recalls his warning, but her desire to understand weighs heavier. Taking a deep breath, she slowly turns the doorknob, revealing a narrow staircase leading into an abyss of uncertainty. As she begins her descent, Emma holds onto the rickety railing, the wooden steps groaning beneath her weight. The dimness grows with every step, only broken by the faint glimmers of light that seep through cracks in the walls. Shadows play tricks on her eyes, making her question what might be lurking in the corners. The deeper she goes, the tighter her chest feels, a mix of fear and anticipation, with memories of old stories about the house playing in her mind. Reaching the base, a cold draft greets her, bringing with it the pungent odor of dampness and decay. Old, forgotten memories of hiding in attics or basements as a child resurface. But this place has an unfamiliar eeriness. Moldy books and discarded clothes litter the ground. The scent reminds her of long-forgotten secrets, buried beneath layers of time and mystery, and she wonders how many stories this cellar might hold. The dim light reveals walls adorned with framed memories, pictures of a young Tom, vibrant and in love, contrast sharply with the frail man she knows now. She sees him dancing, laughing, and holding a woman closely. A stark difference from the solitary figure upstairs. Other photos show family gatherings, holidays, and celebrations, evoking emotions of longing and sorrow. How did such a vibrant man come to be so alone and surrounded by shadows? Suddenly, a distant murmur breaks her concentration. She freezes, straining her ears. It sounds like Tom's voice, but distorted, as if carried by the wind. Panic swells within her. She debates whether to hide or rush back up, the weight of her discovery pressing on her. The familiar yet distant voice seems to echo with both pain and regret, urging her to uncover the mysteries concealed within these walls. From the moment Emma began caring for Tom, he made one thing abundantly clear. The basement was off limits. "There are things there," he would say with a wary glance, "old memories. things best left undisturbed. The emphasis in his voice, heavy with weight and caution, made Emma wonder what lay beneath. But she respected his wishes, always steering clear of the cellar door, though her curiosity never truly waned. As weeks turned into months, Tom began to surprise Emma with little presents. At first, she found them endearing, a trinket here, a scarf there. But with time, she began to notice an uncanny familiarity about them. The locket he gifted her, though tarnished by age, bore a striking resemblance to one she had misplaced years ago. It couldn't be the same one, could it? The coincidences became too much to ignore. Things began to go amiss in Emma's life. She'd reach for her grandmother's old brooch or her favorite pen and find them missing. Each disappearance further heightened her unease. Every corner of the house seemed to echo with soft whispers, pointing her toward the basement. The missing items, combined with Tom's peculiar gifts, seeded a nagging doubt in her mind. Was it all related? During their evening chats, Tom regaled Emma with tales from his youth. Each story brimmed with passion, love, and often heartbreak. They spoke of a woman with raven-black hair, whose laughter reminded him of spring. A woman who, through some tragedy or misunderstanding, had drifted away. Listening to Tom's melancholic reflections, Emma found herself feeling both empathy and apprehension. What had turned such passionate love stories into sorrowful tales? One evening, as the sun's rays painted the room golden, Emma stumbled upon a curiously concealed door. Hidden behind an old cabinet, its existence seemed almost impossible. The door, though dusty and old, bore signs of recent use, fresh scuff marks, and a recently replaced handle. It beckoned her, and the mysteries it potentially held sent chills down her spine. Torn between her respect for Tom's privacy and her growing suspicions, Emma turned to her closest confidant, Sarah. Over coffee, she laid out every detail: the gifts, the missing items, the hidden door. Sarah listened intently, her expression growing more serious with every word. "Emma," she finally said, "you have to confront him. There are too many coincidences." Her words, while reassuring, only amplified the uneasy feeling in Emma's gut. Lately, Tom seemed to have an unending list of chores for Emma. Whether it was fetching something from the attic, rearranging books, or cleaning distant corners of the house, Emma was always on her feet. This newfound urgency felt deliberate. Was he trying to keep her preoccupied? The thought nagged at her. His constant tasks, seemingly random and unimportant, made her wonder if he was trying to keep her away from something, or somewhere. One morning, Tom approached Emma with an unexpected announcement. "I need to go away for a couple of days. A small trip," he said, avoiding her gaze. Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. The house to herself, no distractions, and a chance to explore that concealed door. She feigned indifference, but inside, her curiosity was aflame. As night settled and the house's corners filled with shadows, Emma found herself standing in front of the hidden door. The weight of her decision pressed on her. She had always been one to respect boundaries, yet the mysteries the door held were too enticing. With a deep breath, she acknowledged that the need to know surpassed her moral dilemma. The door must be opened. The door creaked open to reveal a dimly lit staircase, winding its way into the heart of the house. Each step she took was a mixture of fear and determination. The only sound was her own breathing and the soft thud of her footsteps. The descent seemed endless. As she moved further down, the air grew colder, and a heavy silence enveloped her. As Emma reached the bottom, an unmistakable scent hit her. It was a blend of dampness And something else. Perfume? It was eerily familiar, reminiscent of her own scent. The familiarity of the fragrance in such an unfamiliar setting disoriented her. It felt both out of place and yet eerily intentional. The cellar's walls were lined with shelves filled with knickknacks, but what caught Emma's attention were the photographs. They were of different people across various time frames, but shockingly, some of them bore a stark resemblance to her. The same eyes, the same smile. It was as if her own past, or that of a doppelganger, was archived in this dimly lit chamber. The implications of this discovery made her heart race. How could this be possible? As Emma's eyes adjusted to the dim lighting, she noticed several shelves draped with dusty sheets. Each contour and bump hinted at the objects hidden beneath. A tantalizing array of secrets lay shrouded just out of sight. The sheets gave off an aura of something forgotten, or maybe intentionally concealed. Her fingers itched to pull them away and unveil the mysteries they covered. Lifting a sheet, Emma discovered a collection of old vinyl records, labeled with dates and names she didn't recognize. Beside them was furniture from bygone eras, a gramophone, vintage vases, and trinkets that whispered tales of yesteryears. Every item seemed to be a piece of the puzzle that was Tom's life. She realized he had layers, histories, and stories far more complex than she had ever imagined. Emma was lost in her exploration when a creaking noise broke her focus. It sounded like footsteps, but not just any. Tom's familiar gait. Her heart raced, and a cold dread settled in her chest. Had he returned early? She had been so engrossed that she had lost track of time. The footsteps seemed to draw closer, and she feared being discovered in this forbidden zone. Without thinking, Emma dashed towards the staircase. She couldn't risk being caught in the act. In her haste, she realized she hadn't even seen half of what the basement held. She made a mental note of where she left off, hoping she could return. As she ascended, each step weighed heavy with the weight of the secrets she had uncovered and those she had yet to discover. Back in her room, Emma's adrenaline subsided, replaced by a mix of guilt and self-doubt. She had invaded Tom's private space, uncovering pieces of his past that maybe weren't meant for her eyes. The line between curiosity and violation had blurred. What if I was wrong, she thought, her earlier suspicions now seeming a tad unjustified. The weight of her actions bore down on her, making her question her own motives. The following evening, Tom returned. He walked in, his demeanor unchanged, seemingly oblivious to Emma's recent escapade. He recounted tales from his trip, laughing at minor misadventures. Watching him, Emma felt a paradox of relief and anxiety. How could he act so normal? Had he truly not noticed? Or was this just another layer of Tom's intricate persona? The house, with all its secrets, felt more enigmatic than ever. Emma had always known Tom to be a jovial, albeit reserved man. Yet, recently, she began to detect a slight shift in his demeanor. He seemed more distant, his gaze lingering a bit longer, his laughs a tad forced. Conversations became riddled with long pauses, every silence screaming 1,000 words. Emma felt an uneasiness growing within her, feeding her anxiety. The more she tried to dismiss it, the louder it grew. Her experience in the basement, combined with the change in Tom's behavior, left Emma restless. Every night as she lay in bed, her mind raced, replaying each moment of her previous excursion. The only way to find clarity, she concluded, was to venture into the basement once more. She had to confirm her suspicions. Gathering her courage, she decided on a day and time for her second descent. As she rummaged through a box in a dimly lit corner of the basement, Emma's fingers brushed against something familiar. Extracting it, she found her heart-shaped bracelet, one she had believed lost months ago. Her heart sank. This wasn't a coincidence. Her worst fears were taking shape. Tom had taken something deeply personal to her, and it was here, amidst other forgotten relics. Exploring further, a growing horror settled within her. There was her favorite pen she thought she misplaced, a scarf she hadn't seen in weeks, even a photo of her taken candidly. It wasn't just random objects. These were pieces of her life. The walls of the cellar seemed to close in on Emma as she grappled with the realization that Tom had been taking her belongings, watching her, cataloging parts of her existence. With shaking hands, Emma pulled out her phone and began documenting every item she recognized. Close-ups of the items juxtaposed against the grimy basement backdrop, timestamps verifying the date and time. Every photo taken was a piece of evidence, building her case. She needed to be ready, for she felt an inevitable confrontation looming with Tom. She had to ensure she had irrefutable proof. Hidden beneath a stack of old newspapers was a leather-bound book. Flipping it open, Emma's breath caught. Entries detailed Tom's growing infatuation with her. The admiration that began innocently soon morphed into an obsession. He wrote of the thrill of taking her items, of feeling closer to her with every stolen piece. The words, raw and unhinged, made Emma's skin crawl. She realized she was living with a man she hardly knew. Emma knew she couldn't face this alone. Pulling out her phone, she dialed the number of her closest friend, Lisa. As she recounted her findings in the basement and her intent to confront Tom, Lisa listened intently, her concern evident. "You shouldn't be alone for this," Lisa advised firmly. They discussed strategies, deciding on a day and time when Lisa could be present, offering both moral and physical support should things escalate. The day unfolded like any other. Birds chirped, neighbors went about their routines, and even Tom seemed his usual self, albeit with his newfound subtle tension. But beneath the mundane exterior, Emma's heart raced. Every glance she exchanged with Tom, every casual conversation, was shadowed by the knowledge of the impending confrontation. There was a storm brewing on the horizon, and the deceptive serenity of the day only served to heighten Emma's anxiety. Alone in her room, Emma weighed the gravity of her decision. How should she start the conversation? Direct accusations might escalate things, but beating around the bush might make her seem insincere. She thought of her safety. Perhaps a public place might be best? But she also considered justice. She deserved answers, and Tom deserved to face the consequences. Deep in thought, she penned down some points she wanted to address, prepping herself for the emotional whirlwind ahead. Emma took a deep breath as she faced Tom, Lisa by her side for support. "I found my things, Tom," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "In the basement." Tom's face went through a spectrum of expressions: surprise, guilt, and then resignation. The room charged with tension as they delved into a tumultuous exchange. Accusations, defenses, and a whirlwind of emotions filled the space between them. As Tom spoke, explaining his actions, his past, and his undeniable infatuation with her, Emma found herself on an emotional roller coaster. Anger surged at the violation of her privacy, sadness for the man she thought she knew, and a strange sense of sympathy for his distorted perception of love. It was a tangle of emotions, and as she processed his words, she found herself torn between outrage and pity. Wanting to ensure she took the right steps forward, Emma scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. The calm, organized office was a stark contrast to the chaos she felt inside. As she laid out the details, the lawyer listened carefully, making notes and asking pointed questions. By the end of the session, Emma felt a bit more empowered, having a clearer understanding of her legal rights and the potential actions she could take against Tom. As police cars lined the street, the once quiet neighborhood was abuzz with activity. Investigators streamed in and out of Tom's residence, collecting evidence and interviewing potential witnesses. The basement, once a place of secrets, was now the epicenter of the probe. It quickly became clear that Tom's infatuation with Emma had spanned months, if not years. Personal items, photographs, even recorded audio, all painted a picture of a deep-seated obsession. The revelation hit the community like a tidal wave. Friends and neighbors exchanged whispers and disbelief. Many couldn't reconcile the image of the benign, elderly Tom they knew with the man now portrayed in local news. Candlelight vigils were held in support of Emma, while debates raged over privacy, trust, and the danger lurking behind seemingly benign facades. The courtroom was packed, reflecting the gravity and public interest in the case. Lawyers from both sides presented evidence, called witnesses, and built their respective cases. Every statement, every piece of evidence, was meticulously dissected, painting a vivid picture of the events leading up to the confrontation. Tom, looking frail but resolute, took the stand. His voice quivered as he painted a portrait of loneliness, heartbreak, and mistakes. He spoke of a life filled with regrets and how his infatuation with Emma became an anchor in his otherwise turbulent world. While he admitted fault, he tried to depict his actions as those of a misunderstood, elderly man seeking connection. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered the verdict. While there was no denying the invasion of Emma's privacy, the jury had to weigh intent against action. After hours of deliberation, a decision was made. Both Emma and Tom braced themselves, their futures hanging in the balance of the judge's words. Emma, though relieved by the end of the trial, grappled with the emotional scars it left behind. The betrayal, the violation of trust, weighed heavily on her. She sought therapy, joined support groups, and leaned on close friends and family, trying to stitch together the fragments of her shattered trust. Time, as they say, heals all wounds. Slowly but surely, Emma began rebuilding her life. The house she once shared memories with Tom was sold, and she moved to a new place, seeking new memories and experiences. While the past would always remain a part of her, Emma chose to focus on a brighter, hopeful future, defined not by trauma, but by resilience and growth. Inside the walls of his dimly lit room, Tom found himself engulfed by regret. Each day, he replayed the moments, trying to pinpoint where his adoration had transformed into an obsession. His hands trembled as he remembered Emma's face during the confrontation, the look of fear and betrayal. He was tormented by the realization that his longing for connection had caused so much pain. As the years rolled on, the sharp sting of betrayal dulled, giving way to a deep-seated ache. Therapy sessions, meditation, and support groups became Emma's solace. Through sharing and understanding, she learned she wasn't alone. Many carried their own scars, some visible, some hidden deep within, but each telling a story of resilience and hope. Emma's world had blossomed. New city, new job, and new relationships. While her traumatic past occasionally cast a shadow, she chose to use it as a foundation to build upon. She became an advocate, speaking out on personal boundaries and the importance of mental well-being, turning her pain into purpose. On a crisp autumn day, fate brought Emma face to face with Tom at a park bench. Their eyes met, a flood of memories washing over them. Words were scarce, but the air was thick with emotions. They spoke of life, changes, and the passage of time, skirting around the elephant in the room. As the day faded, the two found a quiet corner. Emma, drawing from her strength, extended an olive branch of understanding, while Tom, tearfully, sought forgiveness. While the scars would always be there, this encounter was their first step toward healing, a mutual journey of finding closure. The story of Emma and Tom was a testament to the intricate dance of human emotions. It underscored the importance of understanding personal boundaries, of seeking help when lost, and of the capacity for forgiveness. Trust, once broken, was hard to mend, but not impossible. From that fateful encounter, Emma and Tom returned to their separate lives, forever changed. Emma's advocacy work took her around the world, while Tom found solace in penance, dedicating his remaining years to volunteering and helping others. They became symbols of hope, resilience, and change. As the chapters closed on their tale, readers were left with a poignant mix of emotions. It was a narrative that defied black and white, urging them to delve into the shades of gray. It beckoned introspection, pushing each to ponder their own boundaries, understanding, and the essence of human connection.